I will be talking about building communities of influencers in the digital workplace, as Aaron said. So there's a number of tools in the workplace. For example, Cvent being one of them, or you have Salesforce, you have Microsoft Teams, and a number of other things. So for today, here is the agenda that I have. So we're going to be talking about communities of influencers. Then I'm going to be sharing a best practice from Microsoft, which I started. And lastly, we will be going over an action plan of what you can do with these concepts tomorrow in your own workplace. So now let's start with a story. Let's imagine that you are looking for a laptop. You're looking for a laptop and you have shortlisted these 3 brands. They all look good. They have the things that you need. You make a list of pros and cons, and you're thinking, okay, let me maybe check some reviews on Amazon and so on. And you're not sure. So you're about to make a decision. Let's say you are a marketing executive. And then you meet somebody who's also a marketing executive from another company. And she tells you, actually, this is the computer that I have. And this is the reason I get so much more done. Or since I have tried this computer, which converts into a tablet, it has changed my life and it's amazing when I'm traveling and so on. So after you have this testimonial from a peer of yours, someone who has the same role, who does the same, very similar things than you do, then which one do you choose, right? So I think many of us, most of us, if we are between choosing one thing or another, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I buy this? Should I buy that? Most of us will trust a person who's our peer more than strangers on the web who may not have the same use cases that we do. So the reason I give you this example about when you buy a laptop or when you're about to make a choice is to exemplify the importance of peers. And if you work in marketing or if you are familiar with communications, you may have seen that there's a shift happening or has been happening over the last years, where we used to have this push marketing communications, which we call it interruption marketing, right? And this still happens. You're browsing a website and then you get a pop-up. Do you want to join our newsletter or sign up for our newsletter? Or do you want this? Do you want that? And it's pretty much interrupting the flow of what you're doing. And marketing is moving to this engagement marketing part or engagement communications, where it's not necessarily the company pushing content to users, but are users also engaging back. It's a two-way communication where you have customer feedback, you have people posting pictures with your product, with your things. And this is also happening in the workplace. So if somebody is using a tool versus another tool, they give people feedback and it's not always a push. So it's important that we realize that this shift is happening so that we can put more effort into the engagement marketing, where it's mostly user-generated content rather than our own company content. And when we realize that it's not a company talking to a user, like we tend to say B2C or B2B or a company talking to a company, now it's actually human to human. So you realize that people who make decisions are not the big companies, they are the people who work in the big companies. And now this is why it's important to start leveraging the humans who are everywhere, all of us, as influencers. And influencers are not only, let's say, the celebrities and the people you pay, but virtually anyone. And there's a number of definitions of influencers and ways to split them into by number into different groups. And people call some people mega influencers, macro influencers, and so on. So I've chosen one of these pyramids from Business Insider in terms of how many tiers you get of people who actually have an impact in the decisions of others. And in this session, I'm focusing on the nano influencer. I'm assuming most of us here in this room are nano-influencers in either of our platforms. So hopefully you have followers on either LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. And you don't need to have thousands in order to be a nano-influencer, but you are influencing your peers. So people who have the same role as you, even if you are not a professional, let's say, marketer, but if you are a mother, then other people who are also mothers may be influenced by your opinion or based on your job. So based on this very short introduction of how people have influences on their peers, I would like to share with you a study that we made at Microsoft about how people learn about technology. So we have a lot of technology, as you know, at Microsoft Office, Microsoft Teams, and so on. And there's a number of other technologies that people are also having in their workplace, like Salesforce, CRM, and Cvent, and companies like that. So when you introduce a new technology to your employees, how do they learn about it? And we see that most people are doing is they are doing trial and error. They check on Google, they watch a video training, and they try to figure it out themselves. And this is not very helpful because it takes a lot of time. But they feel comfortable doing that. It would be more helpful if they were to ask IT or their manager, but they don't feel very comfortable doing that. So what is the sweet spot? That is peers, as you can see there in the presentation highlighted. So peers are people who can help you or can help their peers make decisions or learn about a new technology. And people feel comfortable approaching a peer because they feel they are at the same level. It's not like there's no hierarchy. And normally they would approach a peer that they know understands the technology. So if you have to use Microsoft Teams from tomorrow on instead of Zoom, for example, and you don't know how to do things, you may be more comfortable asking your peer and say, hey, how do I create a meeting in Teams, than asking anyone else. And this is very, very helpful, actually. So what is the other message I would like you to take from this is that communities of employee influencers will help others change. So we can talk about marketing, we can talk about sales, we can talk about change management, but it's all the same. It's all about, marketing and sales. It's virtually the same. You're trying to get people to buy from you. Change management is also the same. You're trying to get people to do something that they are not doing yet. So it's all about influencing others. And the easiest way to influence others at scale is through community. That's one of the messages that I have today. Now, we have a number of companies who have understood this very well, mostly the large organizations, and they say, okay, we are launching this digital workplace, hybrid workplace initiative. We are having now a group of champions who are ambassadors for this new way of work, and this is our community. So other companies may think, how do I start such a community to have employees be influencers, or even customers be influencers of other customers? And why would people join such a community? So we did a study, and in companies where they have such employee communities of influencers, of champions, we asked them, why did you join such a community, to the champions? And we were surprised to see that not many people were interested in the certificate or in the compensation to join such programs. Not all programs have compensations. Most of them have nothing to give you. But most of them were super interested in helping others adopt this new way of work because it makes their job easier. And this is something that it may be new to you or not, but some people are naturally happy to be ambassadors of new technologies or of new products. So it's not as good to nominate people and say, okay, you are now the champion or you are now the influencer. It's better to make an open call and see who wants to be that type of person. person, because naturally there are many of these people in every company. And once you put them together, they all really want to drive change for the organization. So that's what they said. It makes my job easier in this study. And now to summarize this first part of communities of influencers, these are the traits, the ABCs of employee influencers. And these pictures are real pictures of companies who have this sort of programs of champions. They dress them the same way oftentimes, or they give them either a digital badge or a physical badge. So the reason, or how should they behave, or what are the attributes of these people, is this ABC. They have to be super visible and active, because if they are just an influencer but they are behind the scenes, then this is not going to be very, impactful, let's say. They have to build a coalition, so not just themselves, but really make groups in their own departments. So you can have, for example, a community of people from the sales department who talk to the community of people in the marketing department and make a bigger thing, everybody who works in marketing and sales, for example. And lastly, they have to communicate and be vocal, because just being in this community, closed community of champions, is not enough. They have to go out and spread the word and say, hey, we have been using this and that, and it's amazing, and you guys should try it too. So that's what we have seen working a lot in companies. At Microsoft, because we have so many tools and so many customers worldwide, we want to help our organizations to adopt the products that they buy from us. This is not always so easy. There's a lot of resistance from employees who say, well, why should I use this instead of that? But what we have seen is whenever a company invests time and effort into creating communities of peers, of influencers, then the change takes off very quickly. And now I'll move to the second part of this session, which is the Microsoft best practice. And if there are any questions, I will address them at the end, so you can just post them in the chat. Now, here is this best practice from Microsoft Switzerland. Basically, what we did is we realized we had so many companies in Switzerland who are our customers, and they are in different stages of adoption. So some of them are very good in using all the Microsoft tools, others not really, and others are just starting and are skeptical and not sure how to start. So we thought, let's bring them together and have the people who are more advanced tell the story to the others and become influencers. We did not pay them, or we did not tell them, hey, you have to influence the others. We just said, we're going to bring everybody together once a quarter in this community meeting before COVID. We started before COVID, so we were able to have on-site events. And then we said, you can present, just talk about your best practice in an authentic way. How have Microsoft products helped you? How did you go over with the adoption and so on? And that's all we told a number of companies, be our speakers and talk about their experience. And their experience, of course, we knew in advance that they had a positive experience. So there was not much risk, let's say, of them saying something that wasn't good. But we still told them, be authentic. And if you had challenges with our solutions, feel free to say it. Say anything you think could help the others. This was very powerful because before we tried that, we had been doing a lot of events where Microsoft was pitching and just saying, we are best because of this and this and this. And customers would just say like, okay, thanks for the pitch, but that's it. And with this network, which we called it the Modern Workplace Transformation Network, we were able to, let's say, have more credibility because our customers themselves were the advocates and the ambassadors and the influencers of our solutions. And we also got more impact because the customers who were not sure, they saw their peers who were also, let's say, a company in banking or a company in manufacturing, companies from the same industry who had similar challenges, who were thriving with these tools. So that was super powerful. And we created a LinkedIn group as well for them to connect offline. We also moved into virtual events afterwards because, we couldn't do on-site events anymore last year. So that is the best practice. We have about 400 members in the LinkedIn group, and these are all people working in similar roles in digital workplace in Switzerland for our customers. Now, how can you start your own community? We can talk about either employee communities or customer communities. So I recommend you to follow these steps. You build a program. Basically, you make it official, like sort of a program, not just, okay, I'm going to try this, but you make it a program. You get a sponsor in your organization to actually, give it some weight and that it has importance in the agenda of your company. Then you find influencers. It's best to not ask for nominations, because managers will nominate maybe their best performer, or, oh, okay, he can do that, oh, she can do that. But this may not be the best people to be the influencers. You have to make an open ask. Hey, who wants to be an influencer? Now, if you are doing this for customers, then it is a different story. And you can also ask your customers, hey, would you like to be a speaker? Would you like to contribute? And so on. If they say no, then you don't need to push, because that means they wouldn't be the real good ones. And then you can do trainer sessions, community calls to make sure that they know what's happening, what are the new features coming to the tools, what are the new things coming to your product, to keep them up to date. And lastly, you engage with them. So here's an example of a Microsoft Teams setup that we created for one of our champions communities. So you have different channels, so certain channels for best practices, others for people to give feedback, to ask questions, and so on. So ideally, this community of influencers would be in a digital place where they can exchange, they can have access to resources as well. So lastly, this is the last message I would like to leave you with, which is basically that the hidden channel of influence, you know about all these channels, right, that are like influencing people, but the hidden one, which we mostly are not touching much, is your peers, your other employees, your other customers, people who are in the same shoes as your target audience, as the people you're trying to convince. So that is the message. And now moving into the last piece of this session, which is your action plan. What can you do now with all these ideas that we have seen in the previous slides? So I would advise you to do these two things. First, list any ideas. Take some time later today, when you have some free space, and list ideas that you can do to leverage communities of influencers. Give them numbers, and then you put them into a matrix like that. Like you say impact and effort, and you start with your top quadrant. Basically, that's the quick wins, the things that don't take much effort, but are generating a lot of impact. So even before you identify which quadrant is which, you can just locate the numbers of the ideas that you have into the matrix and say, okay, this is a lot of effort, but also a lot of impact. So I'll put it here. This is low effort, high impact, and so on. So you just map all your ideas, and then you see, okay, which numbers do I have on this first quadrant? I'm going to go for that first. And then second, once you're done with your quick wins, you start with your investment quadrant, which is basically high impact as well and high effort. So then you move into that one. And the other two, maybe don't even bother. Just try to find more ideas in the first high impact, so that you can make sure that anything that you're working on is going to have a very high impact. So I'll just finish with this slide, and then I'll see if you guys have any questions. So this is the idea behind all of this is basically that influencers drive engagement authentically. And I think authentically is super important because you can drive engagement, but they know it's you. They know you are the company behind these things. But if it's their peers, then it's more authentic. So thank you very much. And I'll be happy to take questions if there are any. Otherwise, I'll hand over.